Думков. Ты еще увидишь, как из-за твоей продажной глупости, Анна-Лена Бербок, Берлин будет гореть.
Надо как-то сделать так, чтобы американские солдаты начали гибнуть.
Да мы сотрем в порошок Варшаву и Вильнюс.
Почему мы признаем Францию в ее границах?
Как я хочу посмотреть, чтобы Урсулиха фон дер Ляля корчилась с куском беспилотника в глотке.
Когда на сегодняшний день мы говорим, что война будет безъядерной, мы, наверное, лукавим.
По количеству на душу населения, правда, Канада ее опережает, но Америка — это мировая держава по дебилу.
Я сейчас требую спалить Берлин.
Welcome to another episode of Russian Hate Speech, where we break down the Kremlin's latest lies against the West. During the program Evening with Vladimir Solovyov on the Russian state channel Russia 1, host Vladimir Solovyov launched an attack on French President Emmanuel Macron, claiming that Macron has de facto declared war on Russia.
Macron has challenged us. De facto, he has declared war on Russia. His speech was nothing but a set of lies. We can analyze Macron's speech, and practically every word is an absolute lie. But that doesn't even matter. It's clear that Macron is not following in the footsteps of Napoleon because, unlike Macron, Napoleon was at least a man. Instead, Macron has chosen the path of Marshal Pétain, the Nazi path, the traditions of Nazism. He is not a successor of de Gaulle. No red partisans. No Normandy Niemen. No, this is the Charlemagne division. This is a classic Nazi scenario, with elements of Nazi rhetoric. This is precisely what the Nazis accused the Soviet Union of before committing terrible crimes.
Solovyov's rhetoric follows the classic Kremlin propaganda playbook, equating Western leaders with Nazis and using inflammatory historical comparisons to justify Russia's aggressive policies. The goal is to delegitimize Macron and portray any support for Ukraine as part of a supposed Nazi conspiracy. On Evening with Vladimir Solovyov, the host also spread hate speech targeting the Baltic states.
But they do one thing very well. They hate Russia with all their might. The only product the Baltic states produce in any significant quantity these days is Russophobia. Everything else, they don't do so well.
The nuclear umbrella will be a very serious deterrent against Russia, and it is crucial to use every opportunity to strengthen our resilience, especially on the eastern flank.
Tell me, what's the population of this head-shaking weirdo? 1.5 million? So, this is a country that you can barely find on the map, with a population that fits into a single Moscow district. And now he's threatening us, shaking his head. 0.25% of Europe's population. What kind of nuclear umbrella? He doesn't even qualify for an umbrella spoke. And these people think they have the right to dictate how a half-billion-strong Europe should live? These people, who don't even make up 1% of the EU. What are they even talking about? Is Europe really supposed to burn in a nuclear fire for the sake of these half-wits?
This segment highlights how Russian propaganda attempts to belittle and insult smaller European nations, portraying them as insignificant and undeserving of international security guarantees. The goal is to erode European unity and suggest that defending the Baltics is not worth the effort. On the Russia 1 TV channel, Andrei Mamykin, journalist, politician, and former member of the European Parliament from Latvia, stated,
More and more of the political establishment in Estonia and Latvia, various columnists, analysts, and others are saying, well, if Ukraine collapses now, we will be occupied. The secret is that one must earn the right to be occupied by Russia.
By framing Baltic fears of Russian invasion as something that must be earned, he dismisses legitimate security concerns and reinforces the idea that Russia has the authority to decide the fate of other countries. During another episode of Evening with Vladimir Solovyov, the host argued that Russia should not recognize Moldovan President Maia Sandu as a legitimate leader.
Why should we recognize this Romanian Nazi scum as the leader of a country where our brotherly Moldovan people live? Maybe it's time for us to act decisively, extremely harshly, and call all these Nazi bastards exactly what they are, refusing to recognize their right to rule the Moldovan people. Especially since the Romanian Nazi has no such right. Not even close. I don't think we ever officially recognized. And we should act accordingly.
This is a textbook example of Russia's efforts to delegitimize democratically elected leaders in neighboring countries by branding them as Nazis and foreign puppets. The Kremlin seeks to undermine Moldova's sovereignty and justify potential interference in its affairs. On 60 Minutes special edition on Russia 1, military expert Alexei Lyankov pushed the narrative that Britain is conducting sabotage operations against Russia under the guise of peacekeeping in Ukraine.
We will see continued fighting, but we will also observe sabotage operations. What happened to Bishop Tikhon? Everyone understands that the explosives linked to these recruited spies, or should I say terrorists, somehow made their way into Russia. And we know if we analyze it and find that it contains British-made plastic explosives, it will be clear who is responsible. The same type of plastic explosive was already found on our territory when they tried to blow up the Turkish Stream pipeline in the Voronezh region. So, the British will be directly involved in sabotage operations.
This claim is part of Russia's broader attempt to paint Western countries as aggressors rather than defenders of Ukraine. By accusing the UK of terrorism, Moscow tries to justify its own hostile actions. On Sunday evening with Vladimir Solovyov, Russian propagandists equated the creation of a European army with the formation of the new Reich.
This idea comes from Friedrich Merz and that crazy trampoline jumper Baerbock, creating NATO without Americans. This is an old story. There have already been 3 attempts to create a European army. This is a Reich. No, but really, this is exactly how a Reich forms. If you create an army, you need a unified economy, a unified mobilization system, and a unified legal framework, and inevitably you end up with a Reich.
By equating European military cooperation with Nazi Germany, Russian propagandists seek to undermine efforts to enhance Europe's defense capabilities. The Kremlin fears a strong and independent Europe capable of countering Russian aggression. Finally, in a chilling statement on Evening with Vladimir Solovyov, the host openly entertained the idea of launching a nuclear strike on Europe.
Duda and the others say, and Ursula von der Leyen says, we must start an arms race. By 2029-2030, we must reach a level where we are economically and militarily ready to destroy Russia. So, what are we waiting for? If we are in this trap, why wait? If we currently have a clear advantage in strategic nuclear weapons, why should we wait for Europe to catch up? Why, based on this logic, when they openly state that their main goal is to deliver a strategic defeat to Russia and destroy Russia as a state and the Russian people, should we tolerate their existence at all? I just want to understand the logic. Why don't we strike right now at the locations of French and British nuclear forces, which Macron is using to threaten us? Or should we wait until he attempts to strike Moscow?
This segment is one of the most extreme examples of Russian nuclear blackmail. Solovyov explicitly threatens preemptive nuclear war, reinforcing the Kremlin's intimidation tactics against the West. Thank you for joining us today. Stay tuned for the next episode of Russian Hate Speech as we continue exposing the Kremlin's war on reality.